Benzyl acetate is an ester which is commonly used in perfumes because of its nice peach-like smell. Today we're going to be making it with two simple ingredients, benzyl alcohol and acetyl chloride. This is my setup. On the left I have the reaction flask with an addition funnel on top and a gas trap on the right consisting of a test tube filled with bicarbonate solution and an inverted funnel trap. To the reaction flask I added 21.8 mils of benzyl alcohol. I also added an ice bath under the reaction flask to keep everything nice and cold. I then completed the inverse funnel trap with more baking soda. Now it's time to add 12 milliliters of acetyl chloride to our addition funnel. Make sure you wear a proper respirator and wear gloves. Acetyl chloride is very toxic and corrosive. I then opened the valve to the addition funnel to slowly drip the acetyl chloride into the cold benzyl alcohol. Make sure to have strong stirring in this step. I adjusted the acetyl chloride drip rate to around 1 drop per second. You can already observe bubbles in the gas trap. This is hydrogen chloride, which is being produced as the benzyl alcohol reacts with the acetyl chloride, forming benzyl acetate and hydrogen chloride. After a while, the reaction got a lot more violent, and we can see a lot of bubbles foaming around in the gas trap. We now need to let everything stir in the ice bath for around half an hour. After half an hour, I turned on the hot plate and set the water bath to around 50 degrees Celsius. I then let it stir for another half an hour in the 50 degrees Celsius water bath. You can also tell that the reaction is over because there are no more HCl bubbles coming out of the gas trap. At this point, we turn off the stirring and the heating and we let everything cool down. I then disassembled the apparatus and I poured the contents of the reaction flask into a separatory funnel. You can already see that we have two separate layers. I also washed the reaction flask with some water and transferred that water to the separatory funnel as well to make sure we didn't lose any product. I then added a saturated baking soda solution to the separatory funnel. This destroys any remaining acetyl chloride that was still in the reaction mixture. I took the funnel off the stand, capped it, shaked it, and vented it frequently to make sure all the gas was let out. This is done to mix it properly so that all the acetyl chloride that was remaining gets neutralized. I then let it settle for the layers to separate. Once they were separated enough, I drained the lower layer into a separate beaker. The upper cloudy layer contains our desired benzyl acetate. I washed this cloudy layer again with more bicarbonate solution to make sure all the acetyl chloride is neutralized. I then added some distilled water to our benzyl acetate. As you can see, something weird happened. Earlier, our benzyl acetate was floating. Now, it sinks. This is because earlier we used bicarbonate solution, which is actually denser than benzyl acetate. However, when we use pure water, the benzyl acetate is actually denser, so it sinks. It's important to keep this in mind and make sure you don't throw away your desired layer. I then got rid of the water and I now added some saturated sodium chloride solution. This helps dry the benzyl acetate and stops it from being cloudy. It's cloudy because it had a bunch of water in it, and this washing step gets rid of that water. Again, I capped the separatory funnel and I shook it and I vented it and I let it stand for the layers to separate. As you can see, our upper layer is a lot less cloudy than earlier, but it's still a bit wet, so I decided to wash it again with more sodium chloride solution. Again, I drained away the lower layer, and I was left with a pretty much clear benzyl acetate layer. I drained it all into a measuring cylinder, and it looks like we got around 25 mils. This is still not very pure, and it probably still has a bunch of water in it. To get rid of the water, I added some 3A molecular sieves. These are little clay balls which have microscopic pores which selectively absorb water and leave out other substances. Now that it's nice and dry, I added all my benzyl acetate to a small round bottom flask. We now need to carry out the distillation because we want it to be as pure as possible if we're going to be using this as perfume. So I turned on the stirring and collected the fraction that boiled around 213 degrees Celsius, which is the boiling point of benzyl acetate. The first drops that came over were below 200 degrees Celsius, which means they were not benzyl acetate and there was some sort of impurity. I collected these and discarded them. Then when the temperature reached 213 C, I swapped it out and added a small vial to collect the liquid. We are now collecting pure benzyl acetate. Once the temperature started rising a bit too high, I turned off the heat and I let everything cool down. I'm now left with around 20 milliliters of pure benzyl acetate and some yellowish oil in the distillation flask. So now, to actually make the perfume, I measured out around 15 milliliters of ethanol into a perfume bottle, followed by around 5 milliliters of my benzyl acetate. I then screwed on and assembled the perfume bottle, and there we go, we're done. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It took a long time for me to make it, so I hope you guys like it.